Hey man, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. I had made some beef stew yesterday, and I threw some of the carrot scraps out in the yard for the little bunnies there. I didn't see them eat it, but it's gone, so
Oh, fantastic.
I'll
Good that
assume
they're
that they're
getting
that they're
their
happy.
they're getting their nutrition. That's good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome to hear that. And yes, weather's not great today, but it's hopefully gonna get a bit better
I
later in the
mean,
week, so we'll see what happens.
depends on what your definition of good weather is. I
It's
like
just
this, like, because we
cloudy.
just had a hot day yesterday, and this is
True.
much
Yeah,
more
it's kind of
my.
balances out. Yeah, sure thing, sure thing. But yeah, welcome back everybody to Bite My Shiny Metal Cast, episode 7 of season 5, Teenage Mutant Leela's Hurdles. Yeah, that one still still catches me. And yeah, please like and subscribe if you like talking all things Futurama. Yeah, this
You and I are
episode
huge Ninja Turtle fans, so of course we want
we're
to say
also
that instead.
yeah. Well, yeah, I do like the Ninja Turtles, but it's funny, it has nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's just the pun
Well,
of the whole thing. I
they're
mean, they
down in
are
the
in the sewers,
sewers.
I
Yeah,
suppose. Yeah, I suppose that's one
and
thing.
that's it. And that's
They
it.
could have thrown, you know what, now that you say that, they could have thrown a few more Ninja Turtles references in this episode, but they did not, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I still think it's fun. Still a fun episode. I think this one's probably one of the top. There's 15 and 5. I would say this one is probably one of the top 5, maybe. I mean, we're still getting
Uh,
through. We're still
I
getting through
mean,
them, but I'd still say
given
it's
this
one of the
some
greater
thought,
ones. Yeah.
I think it's kind of a little messy writing. Because there's like kind of like two main characters in this
Main
one in a
stories,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is,
But
yeah.
however, the title says is for Leela, but it starts with the professor. So and it kind of ends with him
Yeah.
too. And
Yeah, actually,
it's not
yeah.
inconsistent, but it's not bad by any means. But just like it's kind of two in one when it could have been just like the professor figures it out kind of on the
Yeah.
side
There are two
rather
main
than kind of
storylines going
experience
on in
it.
this episode, aren't there? Yeah. Well, I think that's when we get to the end of the episode, we can kind of make the decision and we can try and figure out, like, based on our MVPs or something, like who is indeed the more convincing story. But yeah, let's get into it. The opening caption of the episode: now interactive. Joystick controls Fry's left ear. I don't know about you. Did you ever play Mario Part? Not Mario Party. Mario Super Mario 64.
Yeah,
Did you ever play that game? Do you
long
remember
time
at
ago,
the
yeah.
yeah, at the beginning of the game, you can kind of control Mario's head because it
Yeah, where
pops
he
up at the beginning, or
looks
whatever.
kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. You
It
can
was
like
like
drag it
left, right,
around.
up, down. It was N64. It wasn't
Well, you could
like
also like pull the
nowadays.
nose and the ears and all this kind of
Really?
stuff. So yeah. He just had to
I
click
don't
on it.
remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But any case, so now it just reminds me of that. So just I'm imagining like this 3D Fry head, and you can control his ears or something. But the Planet Express, and it's kind of held there on the building for a little bit longer than you would think, just for whatever reason, until the ceiling bursts open and out flies a gargoyle. This is the weirdest way to start an episode, but it turns out this gargoyle's name is Pazuzu, I think it is, and
Pazuzu.
it belongs to the professor. And to be perfectly honest, every time I watched this episode, I kept forgetting about this damn gargoyle. Like, it's such a weird thing to have because he's here, right here, and then we don't see him until literally the very end of the episode. So, any case, Pazuzu flies off, and this gargoyle apparently has been like either the professor's like ward or experiment or something, because apparently he put him through
You put him
college or
through college,
whatever it
yeah.
is. Yeah, so he's like a child of him, but we've never seen this gargoyle before. But any case, Pazuzu flies away. Now, the professor is determined, right? They're going to go on the hunt for the gargoyle. So he gets into like this Jesus, 1950s gear of like flying gear or something. I want to say 1950s, might be even older, but
Like
he's
World
like,
War
where's
One kind of thing. Because I'll say
yeah,
that one because like that's when they didn't really have covers for planes. It was just
that's
them
right. It's
kind
like
of
the Wright
driving like a
brothers.
motorcycle in a way.
Right, the
Yeah.
Wright brothers kind of outfit. He got the helmet or the hat thing. He's got the goggles. He's got his like the trousers and all these kinds of things. Like,
Yeah.
it's just it's
Amelia
so
Earhart era kind of thing.
yeah. So it's so funny for 1,000 years in the future. But in any case, the professor is going to fly the ship because it's his ship. He knows how to do it, but we actually established later in the show as well that he's actually a very good flyer when he wants to be, but for whatever reason he's acting very, very, very old. Okay, just
Yeah.
considering that his age. So he's in the ship. The trio are there, right? Bender, Fry, and Leela, and they're going to go with him, I guess, to fly the ship to go find Pazuzu. So the professor gets in the ship. He pushes the seat all the way to the front. He speeds out of the thing, but then he
My
automatically
God.
goes like 35 kilometers an hour, 35
Yeah.
miles an hour or something in space.
Which I
Holds up
also find
traffic.
hilarious because there's traffic in space, like there's actual like designated lanes kind of
Yeah, they're
thing,
not
even
allowed to
though
go out
you
this
can
when they fly
move
around
in
Earth.
any direction, up,
Yes.
down, left, right, forward, back, and
Yeah.
anywhere in between kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like I kind of get it because I think airports kind of have a similar thing with planes on how they direct them and stuff like that. Like you got to be here kind of thing, blah blah
Yeah, that's what
blah.
the sonar is for, and the radar is,
Yeah,
or not sonar, yeah, the radar is for, or whatever. Yeah,
all
so
the all the
you're
DARs.
supposed to
Yeah,
do this. Yeah, you're supposed to be in like a lane area so that you don't hit anybody, right? Because you can't
yeah,
really
yeah.
dodge out of a person's way when you're in a plane.
Incoming come from the west, outgoing go to the east kind of thing, and then you can turn around in the
Yeah.
air
I
once
just
you're X
like
amount of
that.
times out.
I just like that it has sound effects. Like when he pulls in front of them, as if it's a car or whatever, you can hear the blinking of his light because he leaves
Yeah.
that on, and then you hear like screeching, even though they're all in space.
Oh, very good point. I love that. Yeah. It's also
Just a
space
fun
where you
little.
can't really hear things
Yeah,
either.
and you
So,
have when Randy shows up and yells at him like, hey, Grandpa, move your wrinkly old keister or whatever," and then he's like, "Shut up."
well, he runs away, and then because he's
Then
old, it takes him a while
yeah,
to go. Shut up.
exactly. So, any case, the professor does all these like typical stereotypical old things. He goes slow. He has his high beams on, and they're burning through things.
Which doesn't make
Um,
sense either, but
no,
whatever. It's
but
just it's
whatever.
just funny. It's a
It's
space. It's
just
a
funny.
spaceship, so the high beams obviously have to be actual lasers. But
Exactly.
it's just one of those things where like, how does light work in space? It's not quite the same, but it's
And I
not
and I think
not different.
it's the same area where I think the torpedoes come out of as well, if I'm not mistaken. It's like the same location. So maybe they are lasers and they just call them high beams. But it's hard to say. It's hard to say. But it looks like
Actually, no, you're right. Yeah, that's where they shoot out. I'm gonna
yeah,
put that to the model design. Just it would have been a little like it's only for the one joke. You don't need to shoot
exactly.
lasers and the torpedoes, so let's just keep them out of those holes kind of thing because
Holes
they're
in the area.
very
Yeah.
what's the word? They can be used for anything, sort of
Right,
thing.
right. The universal
There we go.
hole
Yeah, your universal
of
hole.
weapons. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Or maybe they got rid of the torpedoes after the whole incident with Bender. We could go on, but any case, he's just being very, very old. So later in their
We've
little
all
trip,
driven with old people. It's sometimes
yes,
can be uncomfortable.
yes. So later in their little trip, the professor heads to Florida, which of course Florida is well known for honing a lot of old people
It's good for the joints.
after they leave because it's nice and hot and they can just relax. There's not a lot of like issues that usually happen there aside from the occasional typhoon or something. But in any case, Florida has its own state jokes and they make word of that. So they get to this thing and the professor wants to go to this early bird special for dinner, which is like 2:30 in the afternoon. So another really old thing. And when they're asking about the gargoyle, he simply forgot.
What?
I don't know why, but this just makes my day. This episode could have ended there, and I would have just laughed my ass off because it's just
I
like,
like it. Yeah, just
it's such a short. It's such a good short. It's just like looking for this gargoyle destroying things and crying out for it, and then suddenly he forgets because he's hungry. So, any guys,
he walks into the diner and goes, "Hello there, Mavis. I bet you're
yeah,
surprised to see me." And then
Mavis
Wanda,
is
she's like, "Mavis is dead." I replaced her. Ah, still bet you weren't expecting to see me, Mavis. So
and then he has his like, here's my old person like ID or whatever to show that I can get the discount, and she's like, yeah, this is expired. And he's like, but it's a lifetime warranty. He's like, yeah, well, yours expired. So there's a lot of really good jokes in the first 5 minutes of this episode, actually. So I guess they're in this dinner hall or whatever for the old folks, and the professor brings out his teeth, and then there's an incident with his teeth because they're nuclear powered or something. So they start biting around.
I can't keep them in my mouth. They're nuclear powered. Why would I keep them in my mouth?
Bites Fry's finger, gets a taste of human blood, goes berserk, and everybody freaks out while the professor is just eating mushed up meat, which he says it's pretty good. So there's one good thing out of that. So later at the Planet Express headquarters, the professor is like kind of in a nap, but he's woken up by the entire crew. This includes Hermes and Amy and Zoidberg, and all of them are saying, "Listen, Professor, you're too old. You act way too old, and we need to deal with this because you're a menace to everybody." So they decide to get him, be careful with this, euthicized, not euthanized, euthicized, which is apparently a trendy new spa treatment, according to Amy. Okay. Basically, they'll bring him to this spa asteroid area or whatever where they have some new things, and they'll basically kind of do everything they can to wipe away the age, to basically de-age him in some regard. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's like it's hyperficial. It's not. It doesn't actually do it. It just makes him feel younger.
yeah,
Like when you go and get
kind of.
massages and stuff like that. Like they're great and wonderful, but like
makes you relaxed, right?
relaxed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the kind of so we get to this spa, and we'll talk about this spa a little bit because it's quite interesting. We actually get if I'm not mistaken, right? So Elzar species, which we find out are Neptunians, right? And these Neptunians are indeed the same as Elzar, right?
Yeah.
They are taller, more attractive, not connected to any person, like nobody else like them, right? So they're different than the Neptunian species of the elves from Santa's workshop, right? So
never really
these ones
explained. It's just kind of a head canon, so to speak.
I wonder
Malnutrition is a big thing in the real world too, which is why like 30 something years ago, Asian people were generally smaller, like from China or something like that, because just malnutrition. Versus North Americans, we have pretty good nutrition, at least then. But now it's a little weird. And it's the same thing with like Northern Europeans and stuff. Lots of good, healthy nutrition. That's why the average is taller, kind of thing. Nowadays, everyone more or less has the same, at least access to the same nutrition kind of thing. It's not so limited like it was 40 some years ago, where trading was a little inefficient or hard to do.
Sure. Well, it's the and I think it's also like how much you ate of something too, right? So if you have like a very heavy grain diet like Europe or North America would have had at this time, rather than rice or this kind of stuff, then maybe that would be the case as well. But whatever, these Neptunians are clearly not the same as the Neptunians, and this could also be because those Neptunians are raised and maybe they're born off planet, right? So maybe that's why they're also taller. Right. So, I mean, we could go on again.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about this,
but this is a headcanon. This is a headcanon thing, because the North Pole of Neptune is where Santa lives, and the elves around there are small because of that reason. Maybe the rest of the world's fine. I don't know. But there's also Yetis there too, so I don't know.
Which we haven't really seen yet. But yeah, I wonder if like in the design for this show, they had already established that Elzar was Neptunian, and so they're like, oh, but we need creatures that look like elves for Santa's workshop when those episodes came out. So like, oh, okay, we'll just make them Neptunian, make them look the same, but then they make them shrimpy, and then they just threw in that line about like, oh, he never feeds us, so this is why we're all small and shrimpy. But it never talks about why they hold each other's hands or why they have like this codependency on different people, right?
Because
So it's an interesting little it's interesting if it's meant to be like that, because it becomes a cultural dynamic, right? So when Elzar species leaves Neptune, they don't need that codependence anymore. They're not raised with it, whereas the Neptunians on Neptune need it. So anyways,
I'm gonna say it's just that isolated location of the North Pole there, just because they're all scared
from Santa. Sure.
I'm going with that just because it makes sense to me. Yours does too, but I just think that's a little too big, if that makes sense. Like, we left this socialist crappy thing of North Pole, and look at us, we're now 6 feet tall, and not codependent on each other.
Yeah, we start businesses, and they're all rich and like I said, rich and good looking and all this kind of stuff, right? So, in any case,
back to Heather.
Yes, the spa attendant Heather, as she introduces herself. Yes, Neptunian, all this kind of stuff. The forearms, purple, all this kind of stuff, and she's like, okay, well, let's take care of your friend here, or the professor, and we're going to try and give him a few things to help him. So she gives him this like mushroom needled Botox thing that stretches out his face to make it more, or less flabby, right? It's very, very tight now, which he doesn't like. Then they give him a massage with this like octopus alien thing, which basically just spreads out his skin, in which he's also like,
I'm surprised I guess he's kind of like a Zoidberg. Like I would have loved to see a Zoidberg going, "Whoa, you're so beautiful," or something. Because like I think there's another episode way in the future where he kind of has some thing with an octopus thing creature.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's just
that's like later in the show, though, isn't it? Yeah. He's like, but mind you, he wasn't in the room with them, so maybe that's why, right? Yeah.
And then Billy West for another character was too costly for this episode.
Even though he's in it quite a bit, but whatever the case. Yeah. And the last thing they do with him is they bring him outside. Probably one of the best scenes of the episode, in my opinion. I just love this line. But Heather brings them to some tar pits, which belong to this, and apparently, as quote unquote scientists say, is a miracle that the tar basically burns the age out of people. So they have to sit in this hot tar, and they'll become a little bit younger, although I guess their body actually becomes younger. So the professor gets naked and sits in the tar, which he's told not to do because it might be dangerous. And apparently it sounds just like his tennis instructor. So the joke here, which I love, is that at some point the professor is taking tennis lessons.
And doing it nude.
He's doing it nude, and his tennis instructor is telling him that's not a good idea. But he's like 160 years old, as we established in this. He's 161 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny that he's still doing all this fun stuff. And mind you, it could have been like 40 years ago or something, but whatever. I just think it's one of the greatest lines. Oh, you sound just like my tennis instructor. So, and he gets into the tar, and Heather's explaining what's going on, and she starts doing this little pumping thing to kind of get the
like from a water pump.
Yeah, it's like a current going within the tar, okay, to kind of like get around his body, I guess, to get it as natural and as evenly spaced, as possible within the tar. However, the professor is still being cranky and old and yelling at them about all this nonsensical stuff that Bender gets fed up, and he goes over to the pump and he just basically starts pumping, and he pumps it very, very, very hard.
Yeah, pumping is just a primitive form of bending.
Everything can be reduced to bending for Bender. So he does it very, very hard and fast. He's even giving himself encouragement and praise, and not praise. He's giving himself like he's threatening him or something. But in any case, the tar and the current basically make this weird little, I don't know what you want to call it, like a geyser kind of sprouts up, and it floods over the whole thing. It cracks it. And everybody in the vicinity, except for Heather, all get hit with this. So the entire crew are covered with this tar, and they're kind of covered in like black or whatever. So they get up, and the professor like walks over, he wipes himself off, and he now has hair. He's like his orange hair or red hair or whatever. And he's like, what's going on? And he scans himself, and it realizes, holy crap, he's 53. He's just like de-aged almost 110-ish years. And then all the other crewmates all start speaking, and they all look kind of strange until Fry speaks. And his voice cracks. So they wipe off his face, and they see a little scan thing of his age. He's 14. Everybody's like roughly 14 years old. So we get to see what the kids' version of the crew kind of look like. Yeah, the teenagers, I suppose. And they're all aptly so, right? Like they're all teasing each other and making fun of each other and all this kind of stuff.
14, was that just the beginning of high school kind of thing?
Basically, yeah. Or
but I do
junior high, just when you're getting into those like what do you want to call it?
Hormonal years.
Exactly, the hormonal years, the teen angst, hating everything. Bender's like rebellious face, like all of these things, right?
I do have an issue though, just because like Fry and Leela are more or less close to the same age, right? And Hermes and Zoidberg are probably Zoidberg especially is quite older.
That's right. Yeah, old.
Yeah, like
Zoidberg,
Hermes, I'd say would probably be in his late
30s,
early 40s kind of thing, because he has a teenage kid. Probably we'll say
that's right.
Early 30s kind of thing, right? And Zoidberg, he was quite young when he met.
I think Amy's roughly the same age as Fry as well, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we'll say all those three are roughly around like 26 years old or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, they're
which doesn't it doesn't quite make sense, because if the professor was about to lose 2/3 of his years kind of thing, it should probably be close to the same thing for the other people in terms of like math wise. Mind you, I'm putting way too much into this kind of thing to make
the professor was in it. But the professor was in it longer.
True. Also true. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Very good counterpoint.
But
they made everyone the same age, which doesn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, they're all 15 now, even though they weren't the same age. And plus, we've seen a young Zoidberg before when he was roughly around the same age, and he was just a smaller version of himself. He didn't go larval things. The one episode where he's like, I want to be a dance man. So this is all just for a joke, and I'm fine with that. I take it that way. But like canon wise, it doesn't work.
Sure.
Joke wise,
true. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right, because he's just a baby Zoidberg in that flashback episode. You're right. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, and that was only just a few beforehand, right? We just saw that episode. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's interesting. I will say, to counter, because I can't argue the Zoidberg thing. That's definitely just not a continuity thing. I would say for the others, you could argue that, and Bender's only 4. Right. And obviously his quote unquote RNA, which we'll get to in a second. But for Hermes and for Zoidberg, specifically Hermes, he doesn't necessarily have to be 14. He could be like 16 or something. Right. He doesn't have to be like the full age for it, but he does act this like childish way. Right.
Yeah. And the next scene where we see them, LaBarbara comes in and says, "We're gonna take my stub of a little man husband away," and we see that he's more or less the same age as Dwight, who's
Dwight.
like,
That's true. Who's Dwight is 12,
13 or something, like 12, 12.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right?
He and Hubert are the same age, right? So it could be the same. Yeah. Hard to say, but yeah, maybe he's probably at the 14, 15 range. But
where is it? There's my little sticky note. We haven't used this in a while. Suspension of disbelief.
Yes. So
yeah, again, it's just one of the things we like to do because you and I have agreed multiple times over and over again that the Futurama canon and consistency and what's the other word I'm looking for? The main one, continuity. Yeah. Continuity. They are very good at it. Yes, it has lacked a little bit, but this is one of the issues I have with it. Just a small one.
Yeah. Majority of the time, they really keep up with it, or you can kind of do a couple of somersaults or backwards, whatever the phrase is. You can kind of think about it a little bit. You're like, okay, I can make this work in my head to make that sense. But yes, some of them you just don't have it, right? And that's what it is. But yes, for the time being, we'll just say they have all reverted to a certain amount because maybe they also got that amount of tar on them. Like maybe Hermes and Zoidberg got hit closer and they got hit first and they were in it longer than all this other stuff. So hard to say. Or maybe it just reverts you back to that stage. If it's like that, and the professor was just he wasn't at that yet by the time he came out because he was that much older than them. But in any case, one thing or another, they're all roughly their teenage years. And they all head back to the Planet Express headquarters. And, of course, they're all teenagers now, so they're all acting up and being whatever. So Leela, actually.
Juveniles.
Juveniles, yeah. These delinquents.
Street youths.
So punks. So,
there's the other one, yeah.
As you mentioned, LaBarbara comes in with Dwight. We get a little, Dwight, I think, laughs. I think it's the same. I think it's his voice actor or whatever, very briefly. But whatever the case, she comes and picks up Hermes, and he's going to go live with them. Obviously, that's his family. And then this gives Leela the idea, like, oh, hey, maybe I can go and live with my family, which the professor says, yeah, get out. go live with your family.
Who cares? Go do that.
Leela disappears, and she's going to go to the sewers and, spend time with her parents, as she always wanted to do growing up. So that's kind of sweet.
It's sweet. And this is where the tonal shift happens, kind of thing, where it splits off.
It becomes a Leela episode, right? Now.
Yeah, because the whole thing was the professor being too old and crotchety, and we've spent about 7.5 minutes so far with him, so that's about a third of the episode. Mm-hmm. Being about the professor, and now we're switching over to Leela, which I'm fine with, but it's a little inconsistent. But also the title is called Teenage Mutant
Leela's Hurdles, right?
Leela's Hurdles.
Teenage Mutant Leela's Hurdles. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. But I guess you could say like it's enough that the storyline incorporates her with that, right? Because it's still about the professor and being old and all this kind of stuff, but definitely has like, oh, now I can be with my parents, and this is what I want, and she does, and her parents are very happy to have her back and all this stuff. I think Morris is just so funny in these past two episodes. With this episode and our previous one, he's such a good dad, but he's such a bad dad. Like, it's so good. But in any case, they're both happy to have her back. And he's like, oh, we should celebrate like with tequila.
Dad, I'm underage. Oh, right. Just some
silly
hard
straw.
Beer.
It was a silly straw. So he wants her to drink it. But then later when she like asks Fry to bring beer because he's going to be an adult, and he's like, hey, no beer until you finish your tequila. Like, it's a very dad thing. Like, don't you leave until you finish your dinner.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've all had that when we were younger, kind of thing. Like, you don't get to go to bed until you finish your dinner because you're going to wake up hungry, kind of thing. Your mother worked hard on this, and so on and so forth.
So it's just he's a good dad, but his mindset is very different because they both still think of Leela as an adult, right? They didn't raise her; they just saw her grow up themselves, but she never had that.
Yeah, so Leela has some fun ideas too. Is like, if I get picked on by a kid, Dad'll beat up his dad.
His dad.
Can I just beat up the kid?
Yeah, he's pretty good. And she just like you said, there's like all these little things about, hey, like, we can talk about how like my hair will hide my pretty face, and we can bake, and if my dad or if some guy picks on me, my dad could beat up his dad, like all this fun stuff. She's reminiscing, or I shouldn't say reminiscing, she didn't have it before. She's dreaming of a potential life she could have now that she's a teenager again, and she could grow up actually living with her parents. And yeah, it's a very, very heartwarming scene. So they let her come in, and they're gonna take care of her as a family. And we also get a small little thing. And again, I can't believe they got rid of Billy West for this role if he just randomly stepped down because of whatever. But Amy goes back to the Wong Ranch. And obviously her parents are there, and her mom is like, at first sounds like, oh, sweet little girl's back, and then she's pissed off
like a
because
dream.
she's never going to be a grandmother. I love
like
that we don't see Kif. We don't see Kif, hey? So we don't actually get a reference or any idea what Kif would have thought about this situation. So that's like a whole side thing.
I think that's a good thing. Yeah, I think
it's probably a good thing. He's like, oh, I don't know what to do now, something like this. But whatever.
And then we could have Zap say something stupid, which again could contribute to canceling Zap.
Canceled case. Yeah, exactly.
But also, it would have been fun to see them young too, right? Because
yeah.
There would be some questions. Would Kif be treated like Zoidberg, where he'd have different life forms, very weirdly?
I think
or would he turn back into a tadpole? Because at this point they've established it, I think, right? That he'd be a tadpole thing, right?
But I don't think I think it depends on how far back they would have gone. So would Kif have had to go into the water or something like that, right?
Well, like and also because it's supposed to be a lot like frogs too, right? There's a whole stage from tadpole to frog, right? There's like 4 things where they have some arms, some legs, but still have that weird tail. They could do some fun stuff with that, but he's not in this episode, unfortunately.
Yeah, neither of them are in there, but the Wongs are, and so you have Enos this thing, and then Leo Wong just keeps on making fat jokes because I guess we didn't really describe. So like Amy's like this like smoking hot
chubby
like girl when she's like a woman when she's like an adult and everything, like she's like really fit and
she's
like,
even had cuteness reduction surgery
she
was too cute.
She was too cute, but as a child she's like this little chubby little girl. And we actually see this later in the show. There's with the mini in the film.
The movie,
the
last movie.
Yeah, it turns and she's like, that chubby little girl. She was really good for mini golf. Yeah. So, any case, Amy's like the opposite of what she is there. Hermes kind of has like this little fro thing going on, like this pointed fro.
From Hey Arnold, if anyone watched Hey Arnold, the one black kid in that one had like the weird.
Gerald? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. Sorry, I never really watched that much, but he has like the.
I just remember Arnold and Gerald.
Cylinder. Yeah, it's like a cylinder afro. It's weird.
It's basically the style for that. So that's what Hermes
I've seen people have the short version of that, but I've never seen the foot tall to longer one.
Sure, yeah. Zoidberg is, as you've mentioned, so he keeps on going through these different stages, and I think he's like a little worm thing, like a little blood-sucking thing or whatever you want to call it. Is it a cuddle? No, that's an eel.
I mean, he turns into that later, but like right now he's like that weird kind of half squid with the Zoidberg face kind of thing.
That's right.
I don't know, kind of like a cuttlefish, but not quite.
Right,
closest thing I can think of.
Sure. And then Bender is just like he has braces.
He has braces.
And Ben. Okay, we could talk all day, I guess, about Bender's whole thing because Bender's past has been retconned like 6 times. But
multiple times, yeah. Like he's just
a shorter version. He looks kind of like his son in the future. Actually, he's just like it looks like Ben, but he's just a shorter version of him. Wasn't he? Ben was a bit more boxy because his mother was a vending machine, but Bender is like a little bit smaller, like still round, smaller. I think his ears are kind of there or whatever, his eyes, and then he has like braces.
The thing is because they changed the model so many times in this particular episode, which I love because that means you actually had to train the animators to kind of like, okay, don't size that up while doing this, don't do that now.
Yeah, you actually have to make it look different, right?
You have different models. So we're both confusing different times and the thing, but because they revert so many times, right? And Zoidberg reverts like 7 times or something, while everyone else has like 2 to 3.
But they don't do it until the
middle end there,
near the end when they're changing, right? So Zoidberg is staying the same. That's why I'm pretty sure he's that like eel thing. But yeah, whatever you want to call it. But then speaking of Bender and obviously the Bender belongs to the professor, so he's still there with him and Zoidberg. And Bender's like the teenage rebel kind of guy, so he has like a motorbike, like one of those street bikes or whatever. And he's like, I'm gonna run away from this family. And the professor calls his bluff, and
go ahead. Like, there's the door. And I love it because it kind of shows like different parenting styles there, kind of thing.
Yeah,
like the tough love, kind of like, go ahead, see if I care, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you got the other parents like, okay, Leela, we'll be here for you, kind of thing. We love you lots.
You see a difference in there, right? Yeah, that's pretty fun. But anyways, Bender's just like, okay, I'll be good. I won't do this. So sometime later, I guess it's been, I want to argue maybe about a week or something, because Leela's established herself as a teenager living in the sewers. She's met friends. Her lifestyle seems pretty good or whatever.
She's going to school.
She's going to school. And later at the Taranga's house, right, Fry shows up, and he's there with like a little sports jacket or whatever and some flowers. and he's there to pick up
Fry is a
Leela on a date.
Like that.
Yeah, this is actually kind of sweet. Yeah, so
it
he's
is
actually asked her
very
out on a
sweet.
date, and she said yes. Yeah, it's actually kind of cool. Mind you, okay, we'll talk about this in a second because I think there's like a little bit of a subtle joke here for something. I'm not sure if you picked up on it, but
I'm gonna say
any
no.
case, well, we'll see. So Fry shows up for said date, right? And Leela and he are, like this is gonna be kind of cute, and Leela's wearing like a nice little dress, for everything, and her parents obviously are like, okay, well, whatever you guys are actually doing, just if you come in past 12, just don't wake us up. And Leela's like, no, you got to be stricter. And he's like, fine. So she has to be home by 11, whatever. So turns out they're going out for whatever reason, but they're meeting up at, I'm forgetting the name now. What is their name of their little Shake Shack or whatever their hamburger place is called, like Swampies or Stinkos or something?
Yeah, Stenchies.
Stenchies, there it is. So Stenchies, which is, it's cool. It's like a 1950s thing. They have menus in their little cars, and there's these, what do you call these machines? These not cars, hoverboats of some hovercraft. Yeah, like the things you would take in like the Louisiana swamps or something. Like they can go through the water, and they have like the fans at the back.
Yeah, no boat motors. A big giant fan on the back.
Yeah, it's really
hoverboats. I think
it's clever. Like I really like this. I wish this episode was more about just the culture of the sewers. Like we never really get that except for like a few instances. I wish we had more of that because it's really cool
little nuggets of like little chicken nugget bites of it kind of thing, rather than a whole meal of explanation.
You see this whole society, like a whole river goes through this area, like the sewer system goes through this whole area, and it's kind of like a cool. Well, I mean, it's disgusting, but it's such a cool idea for.
Isn't it established in the first episode, I believe, that New York is built on top of New York?
Yes,
or at least some of it is.
Yes,
isn't that where the mutants live?
That's not where the mutants live. The mutants live in the sewers, which is above old New York.
So they're mid New York.
They're in the mid New York, exactly. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, because they also say like because they have that giant toilet that sends them to the sub-sewers, right? Which is also established. So whatever the case, right. Yes, but I do love the society of this, and yeah, they're at Stenchies, and they're gonna get burgers or something, some disgusting burgers, and we get a couple of friends of Leela's who pull up there, and one of them is clearly based off of Moose. His name is Moose, and he has like antlers, and he's clearly based off Moose from the Archie's comics.
Leela, you're hot.
Hey, Leela, you're hot.
Jeez, man, it's right in front of me.
And Mandy, who's like these long-eyed
snail eyes. I think like cartoon snail eyes or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. And that's basically all that. She looks different as well. Maybe there's a bit more mutation on her. I don't remember. But anyways, the two of them are, dating, and they're friends with Leela. And so Leela's like, oh, hey, yeah, check. And this is my friend Fry from the surface. So I'm pretty sure.
I do love this little joke here, though. Is like he's such a loser up there that he has to hang with us. Hey, what you heard?
Yeah. They're on to me. Yeah,
they're on to me.
I love because the idea is, so for the sewer people, if they know people from above or something, then it kind of becomes. Did you ever hear about friends of like your family or your cousins? Like, oh, this is my cousin from like New York City, or this is my friend from like so and so, and people are like, oh, and they're kind of impressed. If you ever go to like a small town and they're like, oh, my cousin who lives in the city, and they're like, oh, cool, and like you actually have this kind of reference to it. I think that's kind of what's going on. So she said yes to Fry because he's like quote unquote from the surface. But
it's like the Americans having the equivalent, my girlfriend from Canada kind of thing in a way.
Kind of, but it's supposed to be impressive. Which is why exactly. Mandy's like, oh, this is the famous Fry. So Leela's actually talked about him. So it's interesting. So any case, the two of them or the four of them have like this little banter or whatever they're talking, and Leela decides to challenge them to a race rather than to bicker.
So abruptly, oh yeah, this is my friend Fry. Shut up now, let's race. Okay.
Yeah. So they go through the sewers, and there's this fun little racing scene of everything. They go through like the sewer areas and just the lanes, and they pass Saul, who's like using iodine to try and protect the drinking water.
Now the world's water things now safe.
Safe for another days.
Yeah. Did you pause or do frame by frame for this at all?
I didn't frame by frame. I did pause once or twice because one instance we drive by a cinema or like a theater, and they're playing Fiddler way below the roof or something. And it says it's crap. But we also get a little cameo of El Chupanibre, which I was talking about beforehand. So he came back He's actually living in the sewers again, in the normal sewers.
Yeah.
And what are you talking about? Did you see some other things that are in there?
No, this is an animation thing.
This is a 3D. This is 3D,
models,
right?
Yeah. They had to 3D rig the boats, so that's two boats, and they 3D rigged all four characters. But the thing is, there's no animation for them; they're just kind of stagnant kind of thing. So I don't believe even their hair is moving. If I look really quickly, that doesn't look like it. So it's just that's pretty simple to do, I guess, because you're just physically moving the thing across. You're not doing any of the individual stuff. Yeah. So it's very funny to see that, because I think nowadays they'd put a little bit more effort into it, because
make it look like that much more. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I just remember so there's some other signage or whatever that goes through the sewers. It says like, try and keep our sewers clean and such like that when they're zooming by or whatever. And then there's a giant tapeworm that's about to hit them. So Leela and Fry veer off and they go a different direction, the direction that's probably going to make them go slower. However, it turns out that this is also the time. So Leela's figured this out somehow. I don't know how, but she's figured out that the professor will use the washroom around that time. Yeah. Right. So, but again, how does she know? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. How does she know that the professor's going to the bathroom right now?
Exactly.
Because his colon is now like clockwork.
Curse this clockwork colon or whatever, right? This predictable colon. So he hits the flush from the Planet Express headquarters, goes down and pushes them a little bit more with their amount of force, that it makes a tidal wave that sends Leela and Fry a little bit faster on their little boat, and they end up winning said race against Mandy and Moose. And unfortunately though, due to their sizes, Leela can't quite reach the hovercraft brake, so she ends up slamming into the public school of the sewers. And we've seen this guy,
Martin Luther Thing Jr., not Martin Luther King, is Thing High School.
And the guy, the mutant originally who told us about El Chupanibre and played the guitar, he's the teacher, which I think you and I talked about last week, right? Or last time. So yeah, pretty interesting for that.
Dwayne.
What does he say that? Dwayne, right? That's detention. And like he's also there after hours, just like doing whatever. So later, back at the HQ, Fry explains his date with Leela and everything, and he's giving Zoidberg and I think
the professor,
Bender, just the professor and Zoidberg, right? But is Bender there? I think Bender's there as well. And in any case, he's telling them about the little time or whatever, and the professor's like, okay, that's great, but listen, I think I figured out a cure to, or a treatment to our situation. And he explains, the science-y, Y&C, whatever, goobly-gook about, there's chromatones or something on their DNA or Bender's RNA, robo DNA, which, is funny in its own regard. But apparently there's going to be, his treatment will then eat at it and then basically bring them back up to their original ages. Okay. So Fry is super happy about this, and then he wants to go tell Leela so they can all grow up together, kind of thing. That's his line. So they go to the sewers and they're meeting with the Tarangas, and Leela actually declines the treatment. She wants to be with her family. She wants to stay 14 and grow up naturally. And the professor says, like, if she doesn't get this treatment, she is going to do that. You have to do it the natural way. There is no going back, because it'll seep into your DNA and stay there. However, she says, nope, this is what I want, and I want to grow up with my parents, and her parents are, perfectly fine with it, I guess. So
yeah, it's your life, Leela.
Yeah,
but I do like that. There's a joke here with the professor, because like otherwise you'll have to grow up normally, just like God intended.
Yeah, and it goes like dark on his face or whatever. Yeah. So she just says like, no, I want to do this. I want to stay with them. And Leela says goodbye, Fry says goodbye to her and says like, I'll miss you and all this fun stuff. And this is where she uses, this is the part where she says like, bring beer when you come to visit. And then and her dad's like, no beer until you finish your tequila. So I always enjoy that. So later, everyone except for Leela, of course, all go into the professor's treatment center thing, like little machine that he's created, right? So actually, it's very similar in the exact same spot as the separate species DNA analyzer thing that he used for Kif's baby. Like it's basically the exact same area. Yeah. But it's in the harbor. Like it's where the ship usually is, but it doesn't matter. The ship's not there. I guess they parked it outside or it's hovering. Who knows? So in any case, it's a machine that's big enough for all of these characters to fit inside quite comfortably. and the professor hits the button to bring them in. So you have Amy, Hermes, Zoidberg, Fry, Bender, and the professor all inside, and the wall coughs or whatever. It's kind of a weird little animation
when he
thing.
says like
Infection, right? It's going to cough at them. Yeah. Right. And the wall like has a mouth and coughs at them for whatever reason. So it goes through, bit of smoke. You think it's going to be okay, but wouldn't you know it, they're even younger, and even more so, they're still de-aging now. They're no longer at one age; they are de-aging. So the professor freaks out, doesn't know what to do, and all of the kids are now, or the teenagers, I should say, they're all now like young kids, and they're acting up, and they're doing all this stuff. So he needs a babysitter to try and figure out how to think. So wouldn't you know it, Leela comes back, and if you kind of blink and you miss it scene, they shows like an opening scene of Leela's house again, like her parents' house, and there's actually a ladder from the ceiling. So this is actually how they go down into their place. They actually live like basically right below where the Planet Express is, I think, or at least they use that manhole. Yeah. So, but I like that little attention to detail. Like it wasn't there before. Now it is there because that's what they use to get down there so quickly to get the babies or to get the kids, right? So Leela is going to be babysitting the kids while Professor is trying to figure out what's going on. So as she does, she's going to go and read them a bedtime story, and Fry actually asks them to read this story about space fairy tales. Okay.
Which is a lovely little like nod towards that Fry loves space even as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, even all this stuff. Like he loves space, he loves all this stuff, and I like the little plays of the play-ons for like real fairy tales or real children's stories or something, but they're space themed. Like was a Snow White Dwarf and the Seven Red Dwarves or something, which is of course Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Charlotte's Web, which is like Charlotte's something. I can't remember what it was. Charlotte's something web, like it's some kind of other interplanetary thing. And then the last one, the Fountain of Aging, which kind of makes Leela think, oh, wait a minute, maybe there's some truth to this. So she calls the professor. The professor kind of like, maybe there's some truth to it. Like a lot of fairy tales come from this. Maybe we can go and deal with that. So they decide, the professor comes back down and he grabs all the kids. Now they're getting even younger. And Leela is told that she is grounded due to breaking the school, and she wants to go, but her parents won't let her. School. Yeah, but her mom says like whatever, just go. But Leela like insists on the grounding in order for her to have the teenage experience of sneaking out of her house so that she could join them, against her parents' wishes or whatever. So Leela's still with them as a teenager, and they're getting younger and younger. Now they're playing with Bender as like a toy and everything. And the professor's, I think he's actually maybe Leela's age at this point. Like he's roughly 14, 15 at this point too. And they're all driving the ship. And they get to the solar system that seems to be the oldest area in the universe. I think it's called Teddy Bear Junction for whatever reason.
Oh, I think there's probably some sort of reference there.
Well, I think it's just the fact that teddy bears are not supposed to be scary at all, and it's just like this is the deepest, darkest corner of the universe, and it's called Teddy Bear Junction. I think that's just what the joke is. In any case, they keep seeing like all these little signs that seem to be like the planets and the asteroids and all this stuff are getting older and older, and they're like, oh, maybe it's on the sun because the sun's almost burnt out. Maybe the Fountain of Aging is on there. So they land the ship. The kids are now infants, like they're now babies. And Zoidberg's gone through a few stages or whatever of his life, whatever it is.
I think he was a clam at some point, a flesh-eating eel.
Eel thing, coral thing, the coral thing which spits off like his siblings, which we'll see in a minute. Yes, he's a whole bunch of like Zoidberg's a very strange species right now. So, in any case, the professor is quite young now. He's about the age of the kids when they pick them up, and he goes with them. They're getting all there, 5 or 6. And they get to the area, and this Fountain of Aging is basically like the tar thing, but it's like this dark purplish, liquid thing that's just spinning around.
Whirlpool.
Yeah, and it's going quite quickly, so it's quite dangerous if you get in, because if you get lost in the middle, you'll age and basically just die, right? You'll just evaporate over time. So Leela says goodbye to them and all this stuff, and the professor holds on to the kids. And a little joke of Zoidberg's siblings sprouting off and jumping in, and everybody thought it was Zoidberg, but it turns out just to be his brother Herman. Which does that mean then that there are 2 of his siblings?
mean, if you look at him, I think he has. Let me count here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, including Zoidberg, and 10, including his
Herman?
brother who jumped in, who butted off of him. So technically, he should have 9 other siblings that we could be introduced to at some point in the
future,
series.
right? But
Yeah.
these are all, so had Herman lived, because he branched off and he jumped out, would there have been 2 of him because he just came back? Or are these different people? No, I guess not.
So
yeah,
you're
you know
saying
what I
there's
mean?
some kind of time paradox thing where
Well, it can't,
at one
but it's not
point there
time.
was 2. Sorry, his name is Norman. Norman, not Herman. Norman. There was 2 Normans at one point.
Right.
Because normal Norman
He's
hasn't.
already
We haven't
grown
seen him.
up.
We have never
Zoidberg.
seen
Yeah,
him and something
exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
He's had a life so far, and then this current Norman is now dead
Jumped
due
off
to
and
de-aging
died. Yeah.
or super
That's right.
aging.
You're right. So if all those siblings had like sprouted off and like lived, would there have been 2 of them?
Point.
Yeah. I just realized like, there are 2 of them, but it's not a timeline thing. It's not a timey-wimey thing.
No, well, I mean,
because
it kind of is.
The professor even says like, it's not a time travel thing. Shut up. Like, like when we were hurled back in time. It's like that's not what happened. So yeah, it's really strange. But in any case, like food for thought. We can ponder it in the future. But yeah, it's just kind of a weird thing.
Oh, that would
right?
be such a cool episode of like Zoidberg has to determine which one's the real brother of his kind of thing.
Brother or whatever.
Mind you, it wouldn't be Norman because Norman died.
Norman died.
Yeah.
And Norman looks just like Zoidberg and sounds just like Zoidberg. So
yeah.
It's interesting actually.
Oh man, I would love that. And then that's when you would bring back Amelia Clark to help him out or something like that. Because she hasn't been in the last 2 seasons, right?
Yeah,
and there's wasn't there like a little? Has there been like a trailer or a little teaser for the new season yet? Because it's almost that time.
Not that I've seen.
All right, well maybe
we would be the first ones to see it. But nope, I haven't seen anything.
Yes, all this deep insiderness that we know. Yes.
Yeah.
We would definitely do a little discussion about the trailer, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and we will if it pops up. But I haven't seen anything.
I swear, maybe it was a fan made thing. I don't know that I saw them together again, or maybe it was an old thing. I don't know. But yes, that would be a good episode in my mind for them going like, oh no, Zoidberg actually got cloned again. Oh yeah, that Fountain of Aging thing that we did long ago. Right.
A special sequel to the Fountain of Aging, whatever. But
it seems to me that at least one of the new stuff is kind of like a callback to stuff, right?
They do make a lot of references. What do you call it? Yeah, the memberberry thing, right? Yeah, no, for sure. But
remember this episode? Remember that great episode? I do. Well, we're gonna shit all over it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but please don't. We're gonna do it.
So, any case, Professor collects the rest of them, and he's gonna stand in as like the 5-year-old holding all these little kids because they're starting to become like pre-infant kind of thing, like embryo. Yeah, well, they're just like they're in the womb kind of thing. They just got the circular thing, and Bender's become a disc of blueprints, which is a pretty good joke, actually. We won't get into that. That's way too much to talk about. But
yeah, I think they've already established how Bender was a thing and stuff like that multiple times. So the disc is uncanon in my opinion.
Sure. So they get into there. Or the professor's about to step in there, and he says, "Thank you, Leela, and we won't bother you anymore." Yeah, and Leela says like, "Oh, you could bother me a little," and she starts to show like some hesitation about like not joining them because that's her family, right? Well, not her family, but like her close friends and her colleagues and everything. So the professor gets in with the kids, and they all start immediately aging, which is great. Starts to work, but wouldn't you know it, the professor can't hold on, and they all start circling around as if it's a drain in the whirlpool, and nobody can help them except for Leela, who grabs onto some kind of ribbon, and she's like, "Okay, I'm going to come in and save you because I can't watch you guys die." She jumps in, sacrificing her own youth, okay, to save the friends. And wouldn't you know it, she pulls out Fry, Amy, Hermes, Bender, and Zoidberg. Okay, and they're all basically their same ages. So we could say it's the exact same thing as, if they were all pulled out at the same time, wouldn't they all be the same age, despite the fact that Zoidberg and Hermes are older? Whatever. It doesn't matter. They revert back to their original ages. Leela does make a joke about maybe she's younger, and Amy kind of jumps in on that as well.
However, winks. Yeah, maybe even younger. Wink.
Yeah. So the only thing, though, is that the professor is unfortunately still in the whirlpool. And he's getting sucked in, and nobody else can get him. So he finally gets sucked in. He curses Zoidberg with his last breath and falls into the water. However, as he does, wouldn't you know it, we pan over to the ship, and Pazuzu, the gargoyle from the beginning of the episode, is like, there. I guess he's just been hiding on the ship this entire
Yeah,
time.
he was hiding on the wing of the ship, like a bat would hang down kind of thing.
Right. So he jumps off and he screeches and he flies up and dives into it and pulls out the professor in an act of loyalty to save him. And the professor's so happy and he's so grateful. And he says, like, what can I do for you, Pazuzu, to thank you? And we cut sometime way in the future, I'm guessing. Pazuzu is in France, okay? In futuristic France with the Eiffel Tower floating.
Still gothic. Still very gothic.
Very gothic, but it's in there. And the gargoyle Pazuzu is with his son, I believe it is. Yeah, little one, I think he calls him. And he's speaking to him like, and this is how I got my freedom. Da da da. Papa. And then, interesting enough, he says, bonne nuit to you all. And he looks at the camera and goes to black. And that's how Teenage Mutant Leela's Hurdles ends. This is yet another continuity issue. What is the continuity issue, Mitchell?
I don't know.
What is bonne nuit?
Good night, isn't it?
Yeah, it's French. French doesn't exist
you're
anymore.
Right.
So yeah, but except for the gargoyles, I guess they speak French. But yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, I forgot about that.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, hey, wait a minute. So yes, bonne nuit to you all. So yeah, so despite the fact that there are clearly continuity issues in this episode, I still love it. I still love this episode. It's very funny. There's some really good lines. I love the sewer culture. I love the mutant culture. How about you? What are your thoughts on this episode?
Well, I think, like I said at the beginning there, it kind of delves into two different ones, with the professor being the main one at the beginning and kind of the main one at the end, sort of. It's kind of split into 50-50, more professor in my mind than Leela, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Because she was in the middle bit there. I did like this episode overall. I do like you said, it shows a little more culture for the sewer people, which I like, because I think we should have more of them and stuff like that, because you can always play jokes and stuff like that. They're humans, but they're all mutated. Like we see a frog one that has like a hand tongue that grabs Leela in one of the episodes.
That's right.
Thanks, Colonel. No problem.
No problem. Right.
We don't see Moose or Mandy again.
No, that's true.
Was that her name? Yeah. Mandy?
Yep, Mandy.
And
we see and the one with the big ears and the big mouth from the previous episode. Yeah, we don't see these guys
you
very
see a whole
much,
bunch of like background characters, and I bet the design team had some fun with those. But yeah, and this because the continuity of Futurama is that technically that Fry in the when he first got into the past, he was like 24 or 26 years old, right?
Yeah.
And now he's canonically like 46ish or whatever, 20 years later, right? And so we could, if we want to, we could take that the professors off screen fixed all the aging stuff and found out, hey, this is making us younger. He fixed that problem. So now he can say, Professor, yes, I want to be 20 years younger. Here you go. Let's put you in the infection thing. cough at you. You're now 20 years younger, kind of thing. There's no bugs, which is why they all look the same 20 years later. Although it doesn't quite make sense for the kids.
So he established immortality?
Yes. That I mean, age-wise, yeah, kind of thing, right?
Okay.
Which, headcanon, they haven't really ever touched. Mind you, also the kid, like Dwight and Cubert, are still the same age even 20 years later.
Yes,
kind of
that's
thing,
true.
Right?
Yeah, they don't age at all. Yeah. We do see at least we see Cubert age in the late Philip J. Fry flashbacks, right? With Leela. So I mean, there's a few things that we could argue are, it plays off in the episode, right? We can only do so much, but
again, this is the whole suspension of disbelief.
This is the fun of it, yeah.
And this is how you and I get it from.
Yeah. But your favorite scene then, joke, MVP.
Oh, geez. There's a lot of little jokes in this episode too, just like the last one. I do like the professor when Fry came back from their race. He's like, oh yeah, and then we beat Mandy and Moose, and like for some reason the professor has a moose head, like a stuffed moose head, and he's like kind of rubbing the antler. He's like, yes, I'd like to meet this moose. Is he gonna shoot him, or is it just like, Moose sounds like good? Moose sounds like a cool dude.
Yeah, I was a little creeped out by that. I was like, is the professor planning to like harvest? Because he does that. He takes bodies and he's like, because even Hermes is like alluded
strange.
To the fact that
you haven't got
Hermes,
this
suspicious since I found those ape bones, quote unquote ape bones in the basement. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like he's gonna go hunt moose, and I was a little disturbed.
I don't know why, but that little joke.
Maybe that's why we never see moose anymore.
Well, yeah. I mean, mind you, he was just probably a one-off character. I doubt that we even see him. again.
If we ever see Mandy again, but not Moose, then we know what happened to Moose. But yeah, okay, fair enough. I like
it's a little joke there. It's not my favorite, but it's the one I could think of that we missed talking about.
Sure, I do love the like when Leela's deciding to go and live with her parents, and she does say the line like, "When we were hurled back in time," and the professor's like, "Shut up, that's not what happened." I don't know why, I just love that. Like, just no, this is not time travel. This is not a time travel story. It's something else that's sciencey. It's not that. So that was really good.
I do also like when Leela and Fry are racing. Of course, they're both like teenagers, right? So Fry goes to put his arm around her shoulder,
Counts
but
the
Leela
shoulders.
doesn't like that. So she goes with the joystick and so
was that what it was? I thought she was just turning and she didn't
no.
realize.
It's one of those things is like too soon kind of thing. Like you're not there. You're not allowed to put your arm around me kind of thing. That's a lot more Leela. Come on, think of all her like exes that like tried to push further than they should have, kind of thing. She would hi-ya them, but that's also one of the headcanon things is that she likes Fry, so that she'd agreed to go on a date with him, kind of thing.
That's right. And she liked him enough for that. I'll call out as well, because we're going to learn more about that for the next episode, right?
Yes.
But Leela at the end of this episode says, like after they're all become adults again, and she says like, well, I sacrificed being young and everybody wants to be a kid again, but I'm really happy to have that life back with you guys and with the friends and everything. And then she and Fry kind of have that little look at each other, right? So I think there's a little bit of that playing off in this episode, and obviously like, and Fry like asks her like they go on a date, like that's an actual date, so there's got to be something there as kids, right? So I think that's really, really fun.
Infatuation, there's gonna be some like they both agree that they kind of like each other in a way. I do
like that Mandy calling out Fry for like, oh, he's such a loser, he has to hang out with us, and he's like, oh, they're on to me. I like that. There's a lot of really good jokes. I love the rebellious Bender, and even at that motorbike thing, he's like, oh, that's sure, let's all do the same thing. Like he's just like they're all different teenager types.
When I get older, I want to be a steamboat.
Right. I want to be a steam shovel. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
But I
really like it. Little fun fact here, because Dwight Conrad is actually voiced by Phil Lamar here in this episode, because it's just a chuckle. Just a chuckle.
Yeah, exactly. Just a laugh, right? Not Bumper Robinson. All right. I'm gonna go Professor for my MVP. Just all these things. I love. Even though actually I should say as well, like that gargoyle does show up again in later episodes. I think we've seen two more times, because he does mention. I think one of them is the films. One of the times is the films, and he says like, oh, the professor has like another wish or something, like one
wishes left.
Yeah, so because he saved him all this stuff, so apparently they're doing like a three wish
beast
time.
With a billion backs
is when he saves him, right? Yeah, and then he comes back again, I think, in the Comedy Central run one more time, I think, because he says,
according to this, you only see him twice when they break out of prison in the second movie. Him and Wernstrom, and then in this episode, so he didn't even make it into the fourth episode as a background.
So he has one more wish left. So Pazuzu could show up one more time in the Hulu run, which I wouldn't put it past them, but we'll see. I'm gonna go Professor. I think he has a lot of great lines, and I love his crotchety old man thing at the beginning, and like as he becomes older. But yeah, and how about you? How about your MVP then?
I'll probably go with Professor too, because it's just.
Two Leela episodes, and neither of us have chosen Leela at all.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, last episode was just a fun superhero one, and she was kind of the main focal point, but like there were so many little jokes in there that were just kind of overshadowed her. This one, she is pretty good and stuff like that. I do like her, but
I think like I said,
this is the problem with this episode. It has. Like, it's not like like I hate it because of this, but just it's two episodes kind of put into one, but the same thing.
Yeah, sure. But I guess because one can't happen without the other, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But this episode isn't really anything without the professor in the first place. So yeah, I'd give it to the professor. Cool. All right, man. Well, I guess that's it for then Teenage Mutant Leela's Hurdles. Unless there's anything else for you to add.
No,
No?
just
All right, awesome.
the next
Yeah.
episode is going to be great, and I have some qualms with it as well. But yeah.
Yeah, we all do, and I think this would be a good one for that. So, all right, well, I'd say this episode is well worth a watch anyway. Probably, a good
I'd say
7, 8 out of
7.
10. I think it's
Yeah,
still a solid
7.
episode, still super funny and really really well done. But yeah, I guess we'll finish it off there. So we'll see everybody next time for episode 8 of season 5, The Why of Fry. Right, and yeah, have a good one, man. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too. Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.